Okay, good morning to everyone, and welcome to the Hinds County Board of Supervisors. The meeting will now come to order. Today is Monday, July 16th, 2012, and the official starting time is 9:02. We'd like to start our meeting as the same with every meeting, and that's with our invocation. And to deliver our invocation this morning, we ask Mr. Timothy Stallworth of the Greater Allen Temple AM&E Church to come and give us our invocation. Good morning.
Let us pray. Thine in whom our presence, our soul takes delight, our pillar of cloud by day and our pillar of fire by night, is that we ask that thou will watch over us. We pray that you'll be with us in our meeting today and that you will help us in deliberations, that we will be fair and that we will be open-minded and that we will have the spirit of unity to work together for the good of the whole. We pray and ask that you will help us to be mindful of situations that others are facing and situations that may confront us in our daily walk, and that we will live by the golden rule to do unto others as we will have them to do unto us. We pray and ask that you will please govern our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our souls, and our spirit. Let us lay down so whatsoever things that may beset us and so whatever things that may separate us, that we can see the good and that we can work for the good. We pray for this county, this state, this nation. Bless our soldiers that are on the battlefield. Bless those who are less fortunate. Bless sick persons everywhere. Bless bereaved families everywhere. Take care of our children. And help us all to do a more excellent work for you because you love us and you have given your life for us. Bless us now and help us that we would do the best that we can, while we can, to make a difference in this present age when it is needed most. And when it's all over and said and done, we pray that you will afford us a home on high. And then, Lord, not my will, but thy will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stallworth. We are approaching capacity crowd here this morning. It's glad to see so many people interested in county government and the things we do here at the county. Given the size of the crowd and everything, what I'm going to do is we normally would go with service pins and first of all, let me ask Greta, is there any public hearings? There's no public hearings. So what we'll probably do, without objection, we'll probably deviate from the particular printed agenda, which is normally called the orders of the day, because of the amount of people that are here. We don't want this to become a fire hazard with the number of people that are here. So what I'd like to do is to go directly to the supervisor's issues, and then we'll come back and go through the claims and the approval of minutes and the elected officials to where they'll have an opportunity to speak and everything of that particular nature. So I think the first item on the agenda is an item from Mr. Anderson. It's a discussion regarding the EOC director position. And I think that's what most people are probably here to listen to and to see us discuss. But Mr. Anderson is not here, so we will table this particular motion, and we will now go directly to the Honorable Ms. Peggy Calhoun of District 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an item on the agenda to ratify a resolution that was presented honoring the life of Mrs. Frances Stanley, and I do present that in the form of a motion for ratification.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Aye. Opposed to? Motion passes. Will the clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve a resolution honoring the life of Mrs. Bernice Stanley.
Okay. From that particular point, we will now go to the Honorable Mr. Kenneth Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on the above and beyond, we got Dr. Sargent here. Can we move that? If I can honor Dr. Sargent and then I go to the item, please.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, it takes a special person to run, I still consider the largest school district in the state of Mississippi. When you talk about Dr. Jane Sargent, she stepped in at a time when a lot of division and concern existed in Jackson Public Schools. Some still feel that Dr. Edwards was removed in a poor manner and that he never should have been removed. But you needed some glue to keep the district together, and that was Dr. Jane Sargent. She came in at a time when money issues had risen its ugly head, at a time when there was concern about whether the city of Jackson had given them the correct message in terms of them making a presentation on their budget. She held steadfast. She held the school district together, and she carried them through a year. Some still feel today that maybe she needed another year to get things exactly where it needed to be. And she did all of this at the same time, but her health just wasn't 100%, but she loved the children. And again today, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, I want to say thank you to Dr. Jane Sargent. She's going to receive the Above and Beyond Award. I'm going to ask Dr. Sargent to meet me at the podium, Ms. Mike. Dr. Sargent, this plaque reads as above. The Above and Beyond Award presented in appreciation to Dr. Jane Sargent, Interim Superintendent, Jackson Public Schools, 2011 through 2012, Supervisor Kennedy Stokes, Hinds County District 5, July 16, 2012. I want to formally present this to you and say thank you, we love you, and I ask Ms. May to say some words also, because we called your office so much, asking for different things before you make your final presentation. Ms. May.
Let's give her a hand.
Dr. Sargent, we just like to thank you when you got screaming teachers, upset children, upset parents, 55 to 60 telephones ringing in your office at one time. You have done a marvelous job, and we'd like to thank you. None of us are perfect, but we do what we can do. And because of that, I'd like to present you with the Hinds County Star Pupil Award.
Thank you very much to the honorable members of the Board of Supervisors, to Honorable Stokes in particular. There aren't words that can adequately describe how humble you make me feel. You're absolutely right in saying that it's because I do care about children. I care about our community. I love the city of Jackson, and I love to call this place home. So we want to make it as strong as we possibly can. I was happy to serve and honored to serve. The Board of Education for the Jackson Public Schools did a marvelous job just by saying we trust you enough that we can ask you to come back for a year. I do think the district is in good hands, and I think we will move forward safely and securely. But I want to say again to the members of the Boards of Supervisors, thank you so very much for this honor. It will not go unappreciated. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sargent. Mr. Stokes, thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as I move to my items, I have some who have to leave the council chamber. I'm sorry, the boardroom. And I'm going to ask Mr. Lap Baker to come forward, and we'll move with number 6 first. The request for the residents of Cherry Grove Estates.
This is your wife. Come on up here. Come on up here.
I apologize for the limping.
and I have a fracture in my big toe. As some of you might be aware that between 15 and 20 years ago, Hinds County created and implemented what is called the Adopt a Road program. And for 15 years, no one had adopted a road. Somehow or another, it ceased. Dr. Priscilla Robinson and her husband, Mr. Charles Robinson. Where's Deidre?
There she is.
Mr. President, tell her, come on. We met out in their subdivision, and they wanted to adopt one of our roads. It was on road. It's located between Cherry Grove Road and Hickory Lane. What happens with this, and I'll be as quick as possible, the citizens basically maintains the road, not with respect to repairs or anything of that nature, but with the litter and things of that nature. That takes a burden off of our department and also off of county employees. And it also takes a burden off of your budget for doing this. And Mr. Stoke, do you have the original application?
I do not.
Okay, but I have one here. We can, Greta, you have it? Okay. What we have to do is just have the president of the board to sign it, their representative to sign and have it notarized.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Will the clerk please read the order?
Resolved to approve an agreement for Hinds County Adopt a Road program agreement with Cherry Grove Estates for Edwards Owens Road between Cherry Grove Road and Hickory Lane.
Okay. All right. Would you like for one of them to say something? Okay.
Come on.
To the board and to the members of the board and Hinds County. I'm Priscilla Robinson. I just want to say thank you for giving us this request to adopt a road. Our community is a fairly new community in Hinds County, and so this will help us to keep our community beautiful, to make it more beautiful, and also to help with some other things that we want to do. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. We hope that many more roads are adopted. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I have two other husband-wife team who need to get back to work. There's discussion of sawmill quarters, and I asked the Thompsons to come forward, please. Mr. President, and I hope Public Works can help us with this item. Sawmill quarters, and that's some more citizens of Sawmill quarters. I found more about it from a meeting with the citizens and Terry. The issue came up about annexation, and some said, why not sawmill quarters? And the condition in sawmill quarters, I think it's almost 100% occupied in terms of homes, but water is a major factor. The railroad, Mr. President, is elevated so high that it's in all the water, it's like a barrier to all the water that when it rains and everything else, it's come directly down on those citizens in sawmill quarters and water under the homes and everywhere else. Now they're here to speak for themselves. I'm hoping that the solution might be that we can find a way to go in there and make the necessary repairs. But I hear from citizens first.
Okay, would you just go ahead and state your name, please?
My name is Ira Turner, and I live in Sawmill Quarter, and this is my wife, Deborah. This is sister and Charles Thompson. So we all live in Sawmill Quarter. Basically, for years, I'm going to just give you a brief history real quick. I don't want to try to make it seem like anyone is not doing their job, anybody neglecting. It's just the fact that for years we've talked to different people trying to get our drainage system improved. And that's our biggest problem, because like I said, the way it's elevated, everything drains to one point, and that is a drainage channel that runs through the neighborhood, and it's backed up really bad. You know, we've been trying to get people to fix it, trying to get it improved. We started back in the history, we started talking to Mr. Brewster. Before him, we talked to other people. We're just trying to make sure we're just not neglected anymore. That's the biggest thing, because in our neighborhood, it's a nice, it's an older neighborhood. It's not too far from Cherry Road. Most people probably don't know where it is, which is good, you know, because we like being isolated, you know, to a certain degree. But all we want is just our fair services. That's all we're asking for. We're asking for someone to come in, try to help us with our drainage problem. Like when they was talking about the adopt the street, we'll adopt it and maintain our neighborhood. We just need some help getting to the point where we can maintain it. So that's all we're asking the board for, is to just come out. If, like the Public Works Director, come out, help us out, do something to help us get our problems fixed.
Mr. President, what I was hoping, and I don't know, and legal someone can guide us, is there a special, can we do a special assessment? I talked to the residents over there about the county and them working together with the special assessment. The county would pay for so much, and the residents would pay over 10 years. I know we've done it in the city, but can we do a special assessment where we can make the truly necessary repairs versus let's put a Band-Aid on it and it's still a major problem? That would be widening the streets, creating the proper drainage, and those kind of things. I know I'm asking Mr. Freelix and Ms. Woolers, because they would probably know when we do special assessment. And if we
Let's
have
look at the situation and make a recommendation to the board, and then go from there.
Okay, but does special assessment exist? Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one question. When you do that, how long will
Would you
it
please
take?
state your name, please?
Jarvis Thompson.
Okay.
And how long will it take to do that? Because if it's going to take months and months and months, we would like to know that. And if it's not, couldn't we find out whether you can come and do something with the culverts now? And then as you do that, we can work on it. Because the flooding ain't going to stop while you're studying it. So if you would do that.
Well, I think one of the things that we can do first of all is to have our Public Works Director to give an evaluation. We can't do anything until we evaluate the problem and make sure we understand the problem. But what this board will probably commit to you is that we will do that as quickly as we possibly can on the request of Mr. Stokes to make sure that we make a quick evaluation if we possibly can. So we will give you our undivided attention.
That's all we can ask.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else?
And we would like to thank Mr. Stokes for coming out and looking at it personally, because we have not gotten that in the past, and that's more than we've gotten in the past. We certainly appreciate the attention to the problem we've been dealing with for some time.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Continue, Mr. Stokes.
Mr. President, we have a young man, Al Jefferson, who's an athlete in this community. A couple of markers saying Al Jefferson is in the process of doing something, not only in his hometown of Princeton, but doing something in Jackson. And Marcus is the representative for Al Jefferson, who played for the Utah Jazz
In the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, so I asked him to come and brief the board and tell us what's going on, what's going to happen here, and what we can do.
First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everyone. And I want to also thank Supervisor Stokes for inviting me to speak on this morning. Of course, we have a lot of athletes from Mississippi that are in the professional rankings now, and trying to get some of these guys to really come back home and have an impact on our state. And Al and I started out a long time ago trying to represent him as his agent. But a lot of times over the years, I've garnered more than just a relationship as an agent with these kids. I've actually garnered a brotherhood with Al. We're kind of like brothers. And I've been working with him on his Celebrity Week for the last 4 years, and it is growing tremendously each year. And one of the things that I like about him is he was raised by his grandmother, so there are a lot of deep-rooted things in him that you don't have to worry about teaching him at this point, since he has a lot of money.
One of the things I like is that he has a basketball camp during the week in Prentice, Mississippi, that is absolutely free to the kids. I feel that is one thing that all players should do, and I hope the media repeats this to the other athletes. I feel that if they don't do anything else, the camp for the kids should be absolutely free. And last year we've gotten up to, out of 4 years, we've gotten up to 470 kids that attend this camp, boys and girls, from ages 7 all the way up to 17, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's just one of the events that he does. Then on Friday, what he does is he has truckloads of food that come in here. I think it's from the Feed the Children Network, where he gives groceries out to his community in Prentice, and he's also selected other cities. I think last year when Vicksburg experienced the flooding, he gave away a truckload down there as well. And then over the weekend, what he does is, because he wants to try to cover all aspects of life, kids to the adults as well, we come up to Jackson and we have a weekend full of concerts. And normally they're like $10. I mean, he spends hundreds of thousands of dollars for artists to come in for these concerts, and the admission is only for $10. And then on Sunday, we go back to Prentice for a concert, and it's only $5. So he's displaying all week long that he's coming home to give back. Well, this year we wanted to try something new, because I'm trying to establish his name as a brand back here at home, because people need to know these things when kids are doing these type of things. This coming, July the 27th, the weekend is actually the 27th through the 29th. But July the 27th, he's having an all-white party at the convention center downtown here that is absolutely free. We know a lot of folks are not going to be able to get in because they're going to cut it off at a certain amount, but it's absolutely free. My phone has been like AT&T call center the last month. People calling, just wondering if it's a joke or not. But it is real. And Supervisor Stokes and I had talked, and he wanted to acknowledge Al, and I really hope that the county does that. I've also expressed it with the mayor as well, because he feeds off of that. The more people appreciate it, the more he does. And we really tried to pull off a huge event this past year, but we just couldn't get it worked out. But it's coming next year. And that's how excited he is about coming back home, doing something each year. But again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to come and talk about it. And again, the weekend is July the 27th through the 29th. The all-white party at the convention center is absolutely free. The only requirement is that you have to have something white on, and he has some national artists that are performing, Jagged Edge, Silk, and we even have Henry Rhodes and his band performing as well there that night. And of course, Saturday we have the concert that will be a free lunch, and Sunday we go back home to the softball field in Prentice. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that information, and we will note that information. Thank you so much for coming.
Mr. President, thank you so much, because sometimes these national athletes, when they try to give back, they feel that the government officials, we don't have to show up and we don't acknowledge them. We want them to know we appreciate them. Mr. President, I have a young lady from the Mental Health Association who's coming forward. I had on the agenda mental health patients. What we were trying to do, Mr. President, we have noticed the increase, whether in downtowns, in the communities, and in the neighborhoods of people with mental health problems. And we try to get the state to come, and I think this is behavior, Hinds County behavior that's here with us today to kind of give us some idea. Yes, ma'am, tell it to you.
Actually, my name is Tanya Tate. I'm with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is also NAMI, Mississippi. And what we do is provide education to those who suffer with mental illness, to them and to their family members.
Okay, now, what we got, Mr. President, now, it's our understanding that the state, in the future, that money is drying up for Whitfield and other mental health issues. Somebody got to fill the gap, whether it's the county, whether it's the city, somebody got to fill the gap, but they just put them out here on the streets. They're going to rooming houses and boarding houses. Some of them being abused, sexually, mentally, and physically, and it seems like nobody cares. We're not asking you for the solution. We're asking you what we can do.
Some of the things that what we are trying to do here in the state of Mississippi is, first of all, educate ourselves as to what mental illness is and have a better understanding of mental illnesses. If we educate ourselves and have a better understanding, we can take care of some of the things just within our own homes. But because by having a better understanding, you understand what that person with that illness is going through. The family also understands what their family members are going through. We're in the process now of offering a law enforcement training in the area, in which I know Ms. Dana Sims was going to speak with me on this, that provide law enforcement with the equipment necessary to give the law enforcement officer the necessary training that they're needing when they're called out to a case. So I think that education is first key to getting an understanding as to what mental illnesses is.
Now, we understand that some of these nursing homes where people receive checks, the checks are not reaching them. They're out on the streets, they're panhandling, they're begging for food and everything else. Is there a solution? What do you think? And Ms. Sims, you have some idea, because the problem is growing. We're seeing more and more. It's not fewer and fewer, and in some cases it's destroying the fabric of the inner city. A lot of times they're urinating and other things on the outside in front of children and everything else. It's not a fault of their own. Again, it's mental illness, but it seems to be an invisible ghost that no one's paying any attention to.
Supervisor, Mr. President, board of board members, I understand what Supervisor Stokes is saying, and I do agree with him on most accounts. Right now, what I'm approaching that we do is that we approach the situation in a departmental stance. What we have done with the Sheriff's Department is we've made sure we come together with NAMI, along with UMC, and Hinds Behavioral Health, and we put together our CIT program. That's Crisis Intervention Team, and they're actually training today. And this is a program where the law enforcement officer comes in contact with a person that he or she believes is mentally ill. That person can be transported to University of Mississippi's single point of entry rather than to the Hinds County Jail facility. Now, in reference to what you're speaking with about the community, I believe a recommendation that the Sheriff's Department would love to make to you is that the organizations such as NAMI, the Board of Supervisors, ourselves, need to sit down and we need to have a real talk about things that we can do in the community. Because along with this CIT program, our hope is to basically get the help of other persons that deal with those with mental health issues, and we can put together a program together along with the CIT program. So rather than people with suffering from mental illness going to jail, we can also have a program where they can go to UMC, where they'll get aftercare services once they leave UMC and things to that nature. But I do think the approach to this is to go after this one step at a time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Man, we were supposed to ask somebody for behavior help. I don't know if they're here or not. They'll never put you on the spot, but you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stokes, continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have a resolution where we are trying to save the Capital City Classic. Mr. President, it was brought to our attention throughout this community, throughout the state, that the Capital City Classic, and as we've known it, is in the process of moving back to Alcorn. And we're not criticizing. I know there's a lot of criticism out there about Alcorn, by Jackson State. I think the win-win is the only way we can save this. And I think some citizens from Alcorn and from Jackson feel that we can get the Classic back here in Jackson and take the community and the business community making a true commitment. They feel, and I've heard from some Alcorn people, is that if it was Ole Miss Mississippi State playing at the stadium, that the business community would do more. and they need to do more with this game. And again, I don't think it's completely gone, but I think it'll be a good step, a great step there if the Board of Supervisors will pass a resolution that we can send to all the interested parties that we support the Capital City Classic staying in Jackson. And we still, some of us still, Mr. President, remember it's the Soul Bowl, because so we go back to the Turkey Bowl days of it, but it's good for the community, it's good for the state. People flying in from all over the country coming to that activity. And some remember when Southwest Airlines used to help sponsor, and and others, and all of a sudden the sponsors got few and everything else. So, it's not time to point fingers and criticize. It's time to roll up our sleeves and see what we can do to get it done, what we bring it back. And I asked Ms. Cobb, she'll read the resolution, then I'll make a motion to vote on it.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board.
Morning.
Resolution of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors to save the Capital City Classic Soul Bowl. Whereas on Tuesday, July 3rd, 2012, Alcorn State University announced that it was ending what has become known as the Capital City Classic. Whereas the Capital City Classic, formerly known as the Soul Bowl, has provided the citizens of Jackson with entertainment and great football games between Jackson State University and Alcorn State University for the past 18 years. Whereas Alcorn State University's football stadium only seats about 22,500 people, while the Memorial Coliseum seats about 60,000 people. Whereas Hinds County will lose much needed revenue generated from the supporters of the Capital City Classic. Now therefore be it resolved that the Hinds County Board of Supervisors hereby resolve to save the Capital City Classic by continuing to hold the football game in Hinds County. So resolved and ordered this the 16th day of July 2012.
So moved, Mr. President.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to? Motion passes. Mr. Stokes, continue, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I put on discussion AMI contract. I placed on the agenda, Mr. President, for two reasons. So that we could try to examine the full contract. This is a pretty thick contract, and there's a lot in there. Some things have been changed, and some things have been removed. It goes back to 1990. I would hope, before we make a final determination as to the new contract, and I think if I'm correct, and someone can direct me, that they want to extend the contract another 4 years. And I would hope that before we take the final vote on that we would at least have a public hearing, give the public an opportunity to come and hear from AMR and what's going to be done and what's all part of the contract. And, I don't know whether the city of Jackson knows or not, but I would hope that they would also have knowledge and participate in any kind of public hearing we have, since we handle all of the administration for the city also. And I know that they officially decided to give the door to the county. But I just hope that before we take a final vote, we'll have a public hearing and we'll have someone to brief us on the full contract. Some of this has been removed out and we can get it condensed to what the contract really is. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That will be noted, Mr. Stokes, and I will get with you and other supervisors as well, and we'll discuss some of the things as well as giving it to our legal advisor as well. Is that all for your...
Yes, sir. We'll hold number one for a minute, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What we'll do now is we will go back to the beginning of the agenda. Since all supervisor issues have been covered, we'd like to go to... Freddie, you did advise that there were no bid openings. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Bryant, there are no service pins?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll go with Mr. Bryant, who's sitting in for Mrs. Davis, who is out of town, attending a conference with our service pins, awarding service pins.
Good morning, Mr. President and board members. We have several pins here to be handed out for service of county employees. don't know who all may be here. We have the first one we have is Extension Services, Linda Anderson, 5 years. Is she here? Okay. We'll make sure that she gets that acknowledgement from the board. The next one is from the Mail Center, Camellia Castillo. Is Tabitha Ward's coming.
Tabitha's going to accept the floor.
She has 5 years. So we appreciate the job she's been doing. Okay, permit and zoning, we have Erica Kelly. She has 5 years of service. Mrs. Kelly, thank you for the years of service.
Thank you for your service. Okay.
From Public Works, we have Johnny B. Martin, who has 25 years.
It's not here. Would you accept it for him? Okay, Mr. Felix will accept it.
Carlton Hubbard, 10 years of service. He's not here. Okay. From the Sheriff's Department, we have Rashhan Chrysler, has 5 years of service. Doesn't appear to be here. Thomas E. Knight Jr., 5 years of service from the Sheriff's Department. Morris A. Carroll, 5 years of service from the Sheriff's Department. I don't believe they're here, but we'll make sure that they go.
And would you make sure that it goes to get to the sheriff?
Okay, and the tax assessor is Deborah K. Grittis. Okay, we'll make sure that she gets it also.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. We will now go to the approval of minutes.
Again, good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. We have the minutes of July 2nd, 2012 for your approval today.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Aye. Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the approval of claims.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Last week, the Chancery Clerk's Office provided you with a packet for today's claims. The first item in that package is a schedule of an interfund advance. This is as needed to defray additional expenses in the month of July, and this is to the Law Enforcement Liaison DUI grant from the General County Fund in an amount up to $15,000.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next interfund advance is also to defray additional expenses in the current month if needed. This is to catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance Grant number 16.804, your JAG Recovery Grant from the General County Fund in an amount up to $5,000.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The final interfund advance this morning is again to defray additional expenses in the current month. This is to the Justice Court Drug Court Grant from the General County Fund in an amount up to $5,000.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
We have one interfund advance to be repaid this morning. This is repaid to the General County Fund from catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance Grant number 16.738, which are your JAG and JET grants. This advance was originally for $10,000, and we request to repay that to the General Fund at this time.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
We have one interfund transfer this morning. This is a transfer to the General County Fund from the Victim Witness Assistance Grant in the amount of $7,054.06.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
We have one special claim this morning. This is to the Jackson Hinds Library System in the amount of $127,858. This is their July allotment.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Your claims this morning are claim numbers 5,110 through 5,347. There are several claims of interest to the board this morning. The first of those is claim number 5,118, which is the utility payment for the Mississippi Valley Title Building.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The next claim of interest is claim numbers 5,265 to Motorola, and this is for 3 pagers and programming for countywide fire.
It's the pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The next claim of interest is claim number 5,312 to Airwave Consultant Company, and we present that for your approval.
It's the pleasure of the board. It's the pleasure of the board. I so move. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? This motion will be held for lack of a second. Continue, please.
Thank you very much. The next claim of interest is claim number 5,347, specifically check number 317639. This is travel for Supervisor Graham, I believe. And we present that for your approval.
Oh, I so move. Is there a second?
There's a travel too.
This was the Mississippi Association of Supervisors Convention.
For how many days?
One day.
The total amount was $147.39.
Okay. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. The next claim is also claim number 5,347, specifically check number 317652. This is travel for Board Attorney Crystal Martin, again to the MAS conference. And this was $657.46.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to your claims over $100,000 this morning. The first of those is claim number 5,116, and this is your health insurance to United Healthcare JP Morgan Chase in the amount of $513,879.94.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? I so move that we pay this particular claim. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of? Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Your remaining claims over $100,000 this morning are claim numbers 5,158 to AT&T in the amount of $194,824.08. This is 911 and county telephone service. Claim number 5,195 is to Porter's Insurance Agency in the amount of $114,403 even. This is your law enforcement liability policy. And finally, claim number 5,333 is to Waste Pro Jackson in the amount of $172,485.74 for your residential garbage collection.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
The remaining document in your packet last week were your grant claims. They do appear to be in order. Your regular claims are claim numbers 5,110 through 5,347, less claims number 5,116, 5,118, 5,158, 5,195, 5,265, 5,312, 5,333, and 5,347 specifically check numbers 317639 and 317652. We present the remaining claims, and this does not include the airwave claim.
Okay.
We will leave that one until a later time in the meeting, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Aye. Opposed to? Motion passes. Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Bryan, I just going to catch a question, catch you a little bit by surprise. There was looking into the AT&T contract, the billing, and everything else that he's done with AT&T. Have we gotten to a point yet where we can talk about that, when we got some results or any updates we can?
Yes, circuits are moving to the state.
Well, the whole thing, I know the state is looking into some things with
Okay,
that.
the contract with the state has been signed, and then we're working with them to get everything together and transfer over on the same date for the bid.
Okay, so that's about to happen then, or the process is?
Yes, sir. It's in the works now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now go back to
Excuse
the...
me. Wait, one more item.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have the order approving the claims portion of the minutes for today, Monday, July 16, 2012.
Move for approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of?
Aye.
Opposed to? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the part of the printed agenda on the elected officials. We will now go to Mr. Jamal Clark. Mr. Clark, the Election Commission. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President, members of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors, audience, and fellow commissioners. I appeared before you this morning in hopes of getting approval to enter the contract with the City of Jackson for their Ward 3 council election, which which is scheduled to be held on July 24th. As of this moment, we have not reached an agreement to that, but I hope to present that to you at a later date, preferably later on this afternoon or tomorrow, if it's the pleasure of the board.
Okay, Mrs. Gallo.
When you say we have not reached an agreement, who are you referring to?
We're basically referring to the city clerk, the city council, city commissioners, and Hinds County Commission. We not necessarily have not an agreement, but we do not have the contract in hand. But at this particular time, the city is still working on it.
Okay. Can we move forward with the consensus that the election will be conducted and come back at a later date to ratify?
Yes, ma'am. That would be my wish.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So, I make a vote on this one.
I think you can. You don't have to leave so quick, though. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. Mr. Fisher.
Quick question for legal. It is okay for us to do what we're doing right now? I mean, basically, the board's not going to meet again in a board meeting until after the election is over. And so, ratifying an election that's already been held, or ratifying an agreement for an election that's already been held, are we good with that? I mean, are we on strong legal ground doing that?
Pending
What
receipt.
we're asking for is the approval of the board to enter into.
I know what we're asking for, but the election's, 8 days away.
Yes.
We're not going to meet on anything, so with this pending, there's all this, set everything square so that we don't delay the election, but we don't violate any legal statutes.
The office of the board attorney was unprepared to answer this question, but if you can give me a moment to research it, I can get back to you with an answer.
If you would, I want to make absolutely sure that because if you're looking at late this afternoon, the board may not be in session again. We have to call a special meeting. There's all kinds of things that may come up. I just want to make sure. I'm not trying to hold up this election by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't want anything on our part to cause an issue down the line.
I understand.
I would think that we could enter into a contractual agreement pending the receipt of that contract, and the board also has the option to allow the board president or board attorney or county administrator to sign that contract. And that way we will not hold up or deny the election to be conducted.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But we have always taken such action. I'll put it that way. We can take such action and delegate an individual to actually sign the contract. We've entered into agreements on many contracts and actually delegated the county administrator the authority to sign the contract.
Okay. Well, normally all contracts are signed by the board president, and if there is something as it relates to this, Mr. Fisher, that's not legal that we can do, then I just simply will not sign the contract until after we sign
This particular election has been so contentious and so interesting from a political standpoint. I guess we just want to make sure that we're not part of it. So I'm good with that as long as
I will not sign the contract until I get legal advice and that they said it is legal for us to do.
Okay.
So it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of? Opposed to? Motion passes. Okay. Will the clerk please read the order so we make sure that we know exactly what we're voting on?
It's going to be resolved to approve a contract between the Hinds County Election Commission and the City of Jackson for the Ward 3 election to be held on July 24, 2012, pending the receipt of the contract.
And authorize the board president to sign the contract.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clark, do you have anything else?
And it's also give approval of the board for the Hinds County Election Commission to go above and beyond the norms of scripture duty.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me ask you a quick question before you leave. Okay, you want to make a separate motion? Yes. Would you please restate it?
That the Hinds County allowed the election commission to go and above the normal scripture duty with the provision of the providing services for the city contract, for the city election.
I think you need to define the responsibilities for your normal duties.
This is an election that's put on by the city, and pretty much the Hinds County Election Commissioners basically do the functions of providing machine, providing the expertise in terms of looking up the voter's ID or the voter's request from the city and preparing the particulars in it, the ballots and so forth and so on, and the LNA testing, the downloads of very on election nights and so forth. Those things that we've normally done in the past as it comes to the city election, any other special election that may come before the Hinds County Election Commission.
Mr. Fisher?
I still don't understand. Isn't that your job?
Yeah.
No, sir.
Man, what you're elected to?
That's a part of that's a special election. That is a part of which we enter into a contract agreement with the city of Jackson to provide.
So, what are you asking for exactly? You want above and beyond pen or?
No.
Be patted on the back? I don't understand what you're saying.
No, it's not a pat on the back. It's just to prove that we perform this function for the city for the Ward 3 special election, which will be held on July 24th, 2012.
Okay.
I thought that's what you were elected to do.
All right. What I'd like to do is to recognize we have a couple of other elected election commissioners here, and they want to speak to this particular issue. If you would, you want to speak to this, please come to the podium, and we'll go from there.
Mr. President and
good morning.
Other members of the Board of Supervisors, I really want to reiterate what has been originally approved. And what we're only asking for is that the contract be honored by you, and each duty is delineated in the contract specifically. And I don't think the chairman is asking for any additional information. It's all delineated in the contract. And I don't think we have anything that goes beyond what's delineated in the contract. And we do appreciate the motion that you made. And the approval contingent on the contract legally approved with the board of president's approval. That's all we're asking.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Graves.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I'm here just solely to echo what has been said, that we're not asking anything that is not that is out of the norm or that would go against any statutes regarding this election.
Okay. Thank you very much. What is the pleasure of the board?
I guess I still don't understand why you, if within the contract's language, your duties and responsibilities are specified.
Yes.
Why is it
This
necessary?
is basically a special election, and the duties of the election commission is to provide these particular services, which, if you understand that they are responsible for holding a special election and general election, you're correct, Supervisor Fisher, in your assessment. So we're just asking to not reiterate what was already said, the authority by you to approve us going into this contractual agreement.
Okay, Mrs. Cochran.
It's very confusing. The only thing that needs to be approved is what you've already done based on legal advice, the contract to enter in with the city. His later statement is totally irrelevant because that's all part of the contract. So disregard that.
It's a part of, so I'm asking for approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board? What is the pleasure of the board? What is the pleasure of the board? Mr. Clark, it dies for a lack of a motion from the board.
Well, Mr. Chair, if that's going to cause some confusion, I will throw a motion on the left hand.
Okay, thank you very much. We will note it as the motion being withdrawn. Is there anything else? Can I ask one quick question? And this relates to whether or not you received information that Hinds County's redistricting plan was approved by the Justice Department. Have you received that information?
I have not personally received that information as of yet.
Okay. Would you please get with the legal advisor and with the contractor, because we understand it was approved this past Thursday, and we'll go from there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. We will now continue with our printed agenda. We noticed a lot of elected officials here today. We have Ms. Cochran, Dr. Rhodes, Ms. Graves, Mr. Stokes, Ms. Green. Am I missing any other elected officials? Ms. Barbara Dunn, I'm sorry. Didn't see her back there in the back. Do we have any other elected officials with any other issues? Okay. Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'd like to address some clarification of our public works department in a contract that is not clear to an alderman of the city of Bolton, and that is regarding to preparation for the stimulus monies that we receive and DOT's money. I need a clarification, and I've asked the public works of their department of
how much it costs. And I'm in Ward 4, and they are using a practice of the mayor having to authorize what streets that needs to be fixed. And I would like a clarification of the law and rules that have been set aside by this board, that only someone can make a claim or request public works is the mayor. And of course I have problems with that if that's such procedure or law that or rule that you all have established that makes the public works not be clear on giving such information. And I'd like to know how much the cost will be is to that particular municipality of the public works from the county. I'm just trying to get a clarification because of the fact of our budget and a preparation from the public works as to employment that needs to take place for our new budget that's coming up and the kinds of monies that are preparated for the city of Bolton. I'd also like to deal with, if I can get that, as a rule or law that is privileged to me as a voting and elected official as an alderman in Ward 4. I'd also like to deal with why I have not gotten, Mrs. Wood had submitted a letter to the legal department for a budget to be set aside in the absent or the recuser of the department of our legal for the county, and that is Ms. Sharon Stood. Ms. Sharon Flowers has recused herself from an assault charge that is pending, and she has sent a letter to the legal department, and I'm just trying to find out why haven't it been clarified and been given a budget or so for a person to handle that case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the other thing that I'd like to get a clarification on is a staff member having to do our minutes that is not a clerk of the city of Bolton, is not bonded, and that document is prepared for our invoice every 2 months. Is not accountability that the state of Mississippi is requiring us to keep as public records. And I just like for the Board of Supervisors and the staff to look into, to investigate why is a county employee having to do the work and the records for the town of Bolton as a volunteer. Also, I'd like to share with the board that I've had a problem as an elected official from Ward 4 at our board meeting, not a clarification, it's a chaos meeting, because of we are unable to get a budget set aside for employees to be able to read the water meters. The mayor reads the water meters. And as a result of that, on the day that the meter were read, I had a problem as I entered my home where wires were cut. Someone went into my house and cut the wires. I'm not saying that he did it, but it happened to take place on the day that the water meter was read, with the water flowers was thrown out of order, tried to be, was destroyed.
And I'm just wanting to get a clarification as it flowed down from the Board of Supervisors through the pipeline of how we are able to get accountability of our records so that we are able to hire employees to read the water meters, to do the public works, all of that. It is a problem, and I was elected by the people, and I don't want government funds and the people's funds to be, duplicated. May I use that word? Duplicated. And so I just want to show you the lock that I had on my gate was broken and entered into, and I had to buy a new lock. My wires was cut, my telephone, I had to call a telephone company, and after they went and found the problem on the outside, I was unable to use my fax machine, and they came inside of my home, and this is what we found as to why and how I was unable to use my technology in my home. And I still have some problems. I want to contact the FBI on the problems that still exist in my home. And so I want to eliminate the problem that we have down through the pipeline of who is responsible for the different employment, different behavior. And I'm having a problem with the police department, being that the mayor, and when I attempt to ask questions, by it not being a clarification of our records and accountability. I'm having a problem with being approached with the policeman being ordered to take records from me. One of the employees and city councilmen snatched the documentation. So I just want us to clarify our records from down the county employees down to the city of Bolton, so that we can get a clarification and do what the county and the employees and the taxpayers are able to pay for us to do a professional administrative job for the city of Bolton. Thank you so much.
We have Mrs. Calhoun and then Mr. Fisher.
I have always respected you for being vocal and very outspoken, and I admire you for your courage to speak out when you think wrong is being done to you personally. However, a lot of the concerns that you have voiced are not within the authority of the Board of Supervisors. So my question to you is, what is the city of Bolton's policy on resurfacing streets? As far as the Board of Supervisors, the statute set forth our policy, and that is a majority vote from this board will determine what streets and roads are resurfaced. Regarding your second concern, concerning a staff person recording minutes, again, that will be a matter that probably you should consult with the state auditor's office to get the clarification that you're looking for in determining who shall record minutes for your board meetings. On your third concern regarding the water meters, again, I think that will be a matter that you can refer to our state auditor's office. All other matters of concern, it appears to me, should be addressed by law enforcement.
And I thank you so much. May I speak to her inquiry?
Yes, and then we'll go to Mr. Fisher.
I'm fine. I'm basically going to cover those same topics.
Okay, well, go ahead, Ms. Green.
I have contacted the state auditor's office, and they said that the deputy clerk is to do the job. And the person that I'm speaking of isn't recording the minutes. They are keeping the finance report and submitting it through the mayor's office for finance. The other problem, I have contacted Mr. Felix, and he says that it is not to pave the street. It isn't paving the streets. It is fixing potholes. And so Mr. Felix's office has been the one that does that. My concern were that he was not clear on a documentation that has been written or rule it's been a practice from the Board of Supervisors as to how much it is that fix potholes in the schools.
Okay, one of the things that, just 1 minute, Ms. Calhoun. One of the things that we will do is we will make sure that Mr. Felix clearly states to you or to the appropriate people the policy as it relates to what needs to be done as it relates to the county's ability to pave streets and repair potholes. Ms. Calhoun?
I do know that Mr. Felix scheduled and refills potholes. Could you address Ms. Green's concern?
When me and Mr. Green, Alderman Green talked, I informed her normally work request comes through the mayor. I informed her to let the mayor email me or send me a letter with the request. That's our normal policy for the small towns to have the mayor contact me.
What's in our contract? We have a contract with the city of Bolton.
I'm not familiar with the contract, but that's the policy.
We have an interlocal agreement to do that work.
Right.
So I would recommend that you defer to that interlocal agreement to see what the terms and conditions are.
Okay.
If those terms and conditions set forth that the mayor should provide you with those lists, with a list of streets to be resurfaced, then you are to abide by that policy. However, if the interlocal agreement says that you're to answer to all aldermen and aldermen women, then you are to abide by their request as well.
Okay. Is there anything else, Mrs. Green?
I thank you all so much for this opportunity and hope that we can solve the people's problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go to another elected official, Mrs. Eddie Jean Carr, the Chancery Clerk. Mrs. Carr.